every so often a game launches with sky-high expectations and a massive fanbase, only for its wings to immediately bug out and send the whole thing crashing into the ground. Think No Man's Sky or Cyberpunk, games that had everything going for them except an actually finished product. In late 2022, Darktide was supposed to be the next evolution of Vermintide 2's rather phenomenal co-op formula. We're talking tighter combat, deeper customization, bigger levels, and all of the juicy Warhammer 40k flavored grimdark you could ever possibly wish for. But what we got instead was, quite honestly, a mess. So the big question is, what exactly happened to Darktide and how did it claw its way back into the light? Greetings and welcome friends, I'm Ash, and with the very first expansion now nearly upon us, join me for a brief retrospective on Darktide's rather tumultuous history. While we'll likely never get the full story, the answer to that big "what happened" question can very easily be boiled down to one single word: pandemic. According to data mining from early in Darktide's life, and a few scattered interviews over the years, it seems that Darktide was originally meant to be far more ambitious. However, with the pandemic throwing everything into disarray, a lot of stuff, like the extensive weapon customization system, ended up getting cut in order to make sure that Darktide hits that all-important 2022 holiday launch window. That was a mistake. Darktide launched in November 2022 alongside more bugs and maladies than your average Nurgle cultist. The game crashed constantly, the servers crashed constantly, the performance was a roller coaster, the class balance was a joke, the enemy balance also a joke, and to top it all off, the weapon crafting system was about as reliable and stable as a roulette wheel in a tumble dryer. But hey, there is a positive, at least the cash shop worked flawlessly. And yet, despite all of that, the core gameplay was so damn fun that I found it very hard to pull myself away. No matter how many crashes I endured or missions I lost progress on, I kept coming back. Because even at its worst, Darktide was still something special. To this day, I haven't found another game that gives me the sort of exhilarating stress as Darktide at its highest difficulty. It is that razor-thin margin between glorious victory and complete catastrophe that makes it so incredibly addictive. And so, despite the problems, I stuck with it, and I am incredibly glad I did. The first step on the road to redemption came in January 2023, when Fatshark's CEO released a formal apology and promised to put everything else on hold to focus exclusively on fixing the game over the next few months. That time frame turned out to be wildly optimistic, but the fact that the usually secretive Fatshark broke radio silence and was actively engaging with the community gave people hope that maybe, just maybe, this whole mess could be resolved. We didn't have to wait long for the very first update. In February 2023, Patch 4 Blessings of the Omnissiah launched with a couple of much requested additions. Most notably, loadouts were finally added, and the weapon crafting system received its first of many major overhauls. You could now buy blank weapons from the armory to hopefully get a solid base to start crafting with, and you could also extract blessings from one weapon and slap it onto another. This was a big help, but it was also kind of like going from being covered in lava to merely being set on fire. The crafting was still, quite frankly, a mess, as you had layers upon layers of randomness to wade through before you got something that is even remotely usable. First, you had to buy random items until you finally rolled one with a high enough level and with the correct stat distribution. Then you would have to enchant that item and again hope it got the right kind of perks and blessings. Only then, only after it got through all of that, could you actually start working on it and make it a proper item. And if at any point in the process you got unlucky, the weapon would very frequently get bricked and essentially serve only as a very expensive doorstop. I played religiously during this period, and I'm gonna be real with you, the only thing that kept me sane was the auto reroll mod that, bless its creator, automated just enough of the mind-numbing tedium to make crafting bearable. The next big update landed in May 2023. Patch 10, Rejects Unite, brought with it two of my all-time favorite maps, Archivum Sycorax and Ascension Riser 31, along with a Chaos Spawn boss that was teased all the way back before launch. On top of that, every class also got a bunch of free cosmetics. They weren't much, but hey, they were free. While the previous update was maybe a bit shaky, Patch 10 landed with a bang and felt like a proper, meaty update you could really sink your teeth into. And best of all, by this point, most of the technical problems had been ironed out. And so, for the first time since launch, it genuinely felt like Darktide was on the verge of a big comeback. That momentum carried into August 2023 with Patch 12 into the Maelstrom. Once again, the crafting system got reworked, and this time around it was like going from being on fire to being doused with water. You were still limited in the number of things you could change, but the crushing randomness was finally toned down. As long as you had a decent base weapon, you were almost guaranteed to get something solid out of it. And that really helped players, including me, branch out into all sorts of different new builds. A good thing too, because Patch 12 also massively expanded the endgame. It introduced an entirely new set of high difficulty Auric tier missions, as well as an even tougher category of Maelstrom missions that always came stacked with crazy modifiers. This was a phenomenal addition, and it really felt like everything had finally started to click into place. I poured hundreds of hours into Darktide during this period, exploring all sorts of different classes and playstyles, and so I consider Patch 12 to be the definitive turning point. The moment where Darktide went from being a cautionary tale to a genuine comeback story. In October 2023, things got even better thanks to Patch 13 Class Overhaul. This, honestly, might be the single most important update Darktide has ever received. Not only did it mark the long-awaited launch of the Xbox version, but it also reworked every single class and rebalanced every single enemy. It was kind of insane. Instead of an overly simplistic talent tree with only a handful of choices, each class got a sprawling forest full of powerful options that could radically reshape how the class played. In essence, this update tripled the number of playable classes as each branch of the talent tree focused on a different fantasy, offered different abilities, and encouraged completely different playstyles. And with the enemy rework making combat feel far more consistent and fair, this update really shot Darktide way up the list of my favorite games ever made. After patch 13, things got a bit quiet. Fatshark shifted their focus towards polishing the Xbox version as well as working on the PlayStation port. It wouldn't be until September 2024 that the next major update would land, and let me tell you, it was absolutely worth the wait. Unlocked and Loaded, the first patch that dropped the traditional naming scheme, finally tackled Darktide's longest running and most frustrating problem, the crafting system. And for once, I don't need a snappy analogy because the new system just worked. And it worked really well. There was no RNG, no gambling, no tedious rerolling. You could literally pick and choose the exact perks and blessings you wanted. The only catch was, you had to play a couple of rounds with each weapon in order to unlock the top tier blessings, though even that could be skipped if you were willing to spend a bit of in-game currency. And so, for the very first time in Darktide's history, there was nothing standing between you and whatever wild build idea popped into your head. If you wanted to go full meme, or try something that had potential but maybe was a bit off meta, you could have the entire build going within minutes. And personally, I absolutely thrived during this era. Not content to simply rest on their laurels, Fatshark dropped another heavy hitter update in December 2024 with Grim Protocols. This patch introduced Dark Communion, another all-star map, a fresh batch of new weapons, and a brand new endgame mode designed specifically for the most hardened of players, and that would be Havoc. To call these missions brutal would be putting it lightly. At the highest difficulty, the AI director starts role-playing a commissar and shows you no mercy and gives you no respite. If your team is not operating like a well-oiled machine, even a single mistake can doom the entire run within seconds. So naturally, I've been absolutely obsessed with Havoc missions ever since they've been released. There is simply nothing else out there that delivers this kind of an intense co-op experience. And just after I thought Fatshark might ease off the gas a bit, they surprised everyone once again with Nightmares and Visions in March of 2025. This time around, instead of catering to the hardcore crowd, they leaned very heavily into power fantasy with the roguelike-inspired Mortis Trials. In the Mortis Trials, you will face against increasingly stronger waves of enemies while unlocking new abilities that will send your power level soaring far beyond what is possible in the main game. It's chaotic, it's over the top, and honestly, it's a lot of fun. It's not something I play every single day, as I've kind of gotten accustomed to getting stomped in Havoc, but it is definitely a nice addition and one that really rounded out Darktide's game modes. And with that, we arrive at present day, right on the eve of Darktide's very first new class, the Adeptus Arbites and their loyal Cyber Mastiff. It is a massive milestone, and honestly one that genuinely feels earned, because looking back, it is kind of incredible how far Darktide has come. What launched as a barely functional mess of half-finished systems and ideas has, over the past couple of years, transformed itself into one of the best co-op shooters ever made, and that is not an exaggeration. So all in all, it was a proper redemption arc, and one that really wouldn't feel amiss in any Warhammer 40k story. So whether you bounced off Darktide during its rough early days or just never checked it out to begin with, I would say now is a fantastic time to jump in. The combat is tight, the builds are flexible, the difficulty curve may be brutal, but it is never unfair, and best of all, the Emperor Forsaken crafting system has been purged and replaced by one that actually works. Oh, and with the Steam Summer Sale just around the corner, chances are you'll be able to grab it at quite the discount. So if any of this has piqued your curiosity, definitely give Darktide a look. It really is a great game. Thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't, please do let me know. If you would like to see more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, hit the stupid bell, pet your robo-dog, and do whatever other nonsense you gotta do these days. Thank you for sticking to the very end, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye bye!